His dark hair was stylishly messy, and his tight black V-neck showed off his muscles. His blue eyes met mine, and we stared at each other. Something flickered in his eyes before he started walking to me. I stayed glued to the ground until he was right in front of me. He towered over me and looked straight into my eyes. I thought he was gonna kiss me, but I couldn't be more wrong. I, Alpha Jonathan White, reject you as my mate and Luna. He didn't blink. He didn't show a spark of remorse. He just walked away. He didn't look back as he walked up the stairs. No, Mia whimpered. This physically hurt. Being rejected. The one person that is supposed to love me for eternity rejected me. It felt like someone ripped my heart out, turned it inside out, and stabbed it 50 times with a knife. I couldn't hear Mia anymore. It was like she disappeared. Is this how rejection feels? It hurts more than anything in the whole world. I felt worthless. Nothing could compare to this pain. I shut my eyes and reopened them countless times, wishing that this was some twisted dream. But it wasn't. My mate just rejected me. Chapter 5. Jonathan's POV. Before the rejection. I can't believe you right now, Daniel shouted. There is a girl who is destined to be with you. Yet here you are, preparing to make another girl, Luna. Sighed. I knew that telling him about Gabriella was a bad idea, but he's my beta. He needs to know. Well, I haven't found my mate, and the pack needs a Luna, I said calmly. Daniel sat down on the leather couch in my office and rubbed his hand down his face. What are you gonna do when you find her? He asked. I shrugged. The ceremony is in 6 days. I doubt that I'll find her. I heard the front door slam, and Gabriella's scent filled the house. Jonathan? Baby? Gabriella called out. I'll admit, Gabriella was the pack slut. Was is a very important word. It signals past tense. She used to sleep with every guy, including me, but she isn't a bitch. We've been dating for almost 6 months now. She is actually really kind, which is why I chose her as my Luna. I met Gabriella a few years ago. She was just wandering around the pack lines. At first I thought that she was a rogue, so I approached her. As I got closer, I noticed that she was crying. It wasn't a good day for her. I took her back to the pack house and let her raid the fridge of the Oreo ice cream. Daniel got up. He's not Gabriella's biggest fan. I'm leaving. Don't forget about the meeting with the head alpha, he reminded me. I waved him off as we exited my office. Oh, there you are, Gabriella said when we walked into the kitchen. She strolled towards me and pecked my lips. You said you wanted to talk? She asked. I nodded and led her to my office. She sat comfortably on the couch and I sat in the chair across from her. Did I do something? Gabriella asked nervously. I shook my head. I have good news, I started with a reassuring smile. I chose you as my new Luna. Gabriella's face lit up and she threw her arms around my neck. We stayed like that for a few moments, until Gabriella stiffened and pulled away. I tilted my head in confusion. What about your mate? She asked quietly. I gently took her hands in mine and looked her in the eyes. I searched all last year. I never found her, but I found you. You are kind and generous, and you care for this pack. You have all the traits of an amazing Luna, and I believe that you are perfect for this pack, I said confidently. She nodded and planted a passionate kiss on my lips. Let's go celebrate, I said as I pulled her towards the door. I knew where I wanted to take her. I had this whole thing planned out. Cheesy, I know. It gets cheesier. I drove an hour to get to the harbor. We walked hand in hand to my boat. This is where we had our first date, Gabriella stated. I nodded and nervously rubbed the back of my neck. Yeah, that was a horrible date, I grimaced, recalling the memory. I didn't know you were allergic to fish, I stated. For our first date, I took her on a boat ride. I had a chef make a meal that just happened to be fish. I didn't know, and when Gabriella ate it, she had an allergic reaction, and we were in the middle of the water. The battery in the boat also decided to die at that moment. It was just a disaster. Are we going for a ride? Gabriella asked, excited. I nodded, and she climbed onto the boat. I untied the boat and drove away from the harbor. When we were surrounded by nothing but water, I turned off the engine so it wouldn't die again. Gabriella jumped in the ocean and floated to the surface. You comin'? She asked. I nodded and took off my shirt. I jumped in, splashing her in the process. Jerk, she exclaimed while splashing me back. We had a water fight, until Daniel rudely ruined the moment. What the hell? He shouted in our mind link. What? I asked. Gabriella looked at me and tilted her head in confusion. I held one finger up. She nodded and stopped splashing. Where the fuck are you? Daniel yelled. This guy really knows how to cockblock. I'm celebrating with Gabriella, I stated slowly. What crawled up his ass and had babies? Damn it, Jonah, he exclaimed. The head alpha is here. I was supposed to have that meeting. Something about a new rule involving alphas. They didn't give out that much information when the council announced that the head alpha would be coming. Oh shit, I'm coming back, I said and blocked him out. I looked at Gabriella, who was making small waves. Is everything okay? She asked me when she looked up. I gave her a sad smile. The head alpha is here. I forgot that I had a meeting. Well, I've already made a horrible first impression on this head alpha dude. So we gotta go, huh? She asked sadly. She always loved swimming. I swam closer to her and pressed my lips to hers. Yeah, we can still celebrate after the meeting, I offered. She sighed and we got out the water. I started up the boat and headed back to the harbor. Chapter 6. Jonathan's POV. Gabriella and I got back to the harbor 20 minutes later. We rode the hour-long drive to her house in silence. I parked in front of her house and we both got out the car. I kissed her goodbye before she went inside. I sped home, knowing that the head alpha has been waiting for over an hour. Even at the speed I was going, I got to the pack house another hour later. I started walking to the front door when the sweetest smell invaded my nose. Mate! Max, my wolf, growled. My mate? In the pack house? I slowly walked to the front door and opened it. The scent was even stronger. It was like vanilla and lavender. I looked around for the owner of the scent. A girl walked out of the kitchen. She was stunning. She had shiny blonde hair, a gray top with a belt. She wore black boots, black pants, and a black leather jacket. My eyes met hers, and I saw all of her emotions. Relief, happiness. I just wanted to wrap her in my arms and never let her go. But I couldn't. I had Gabriella. She was set to be my Luna. I couldn't just cancel her Luna ceremony. She was so excited to be Luna. I didn't want to be the cause of her despair. I blocked out Max so he wouldn't be able to protest. This girl isn't good for us anyway. Her power is obvious. She probably has alpha blood. I studied her for a moment. She looked confident. Too confident. We probably won't even be able to rule the pack together. We would just be in each other's way. I convinced myself that me and her wouldn't work out. As much as it pained me, I wiped my face of any emotion and walked up to her. I looked her in the eyes. I, Alpha Jonathan White, reject you as my mate and Luna. She looked like she was about to fall to her knees. I just broke her. Not being able to watch, I walked upstairs and into my bedroom. What the fuck is your problem? Max yelled at me when I unblocked him. She's not good for us. We already have Gabriella, I told him. You don't even know her name. How do you know if she isn't good for us? She's an alpha. That brings complications. She would hurt Gabriella if I accepted her. I explained my reasons. Max growled at me and stopped responding. I sighed and mind-linked Daniel. I'm back. Where's Mr. Head Alpha? I asked. Alpha Elliot is in a guest room. He was exhausted. Don't bother him, Daniel told me. I just want to get this over with. Well, if you were here earlier, this meeting would be done, he snapped. And with that, he blocked me out his mind. I laid in bed thinking about my mate. Her wavy blonde hair, her beautiful light skin, her hypnotizing blue eyes. I told myself that she was already messing up my life. She would be too much of a distraction with her bright smile and sweet scent. After a while, I shook the thoughts out my head and headed over to Gabriella's. She could distract me. When I got to her house, Gabriella opened the door. Hey, I wasn't She was cut off when I crushed my lips on hers. I led her back into the house and closed the door with my foot. Gabriella didn't question my actions as I took us into her bedroom. I took off her clothes and threw them on the floor. Then, all thoughts of my mate drifted away. Shake Klobe. I walked back into the pack house around 2 in the morning. My mate's scent still filled the house. She's still here. I followed her scent upstairs. I stopped where the scent was, its strongest, outside one of the guest rooms. I turned the knob, but it was locked. Why would she lock it? I strained my hearing and heard her soft snores and steady heartbeat. She's sleeping? Why is she here anyway? She should have left when I rejected her. What are you doing? Daniel hit my arm and asked through the mind link. Who's the alpha chick? I pointed at the door with my thumb. She's a guest, he answered vaguely. Stop being a creep and go to bed. I'm not really creeping if she's in my pack house. What about the meeting? I questioned. Do you want to wake up a man who has had less than 10 hours of sleep the past week? Daniel raised an eyebrow. I shrugged. The sooner, the better. I rescheduled the meeting for tomorrow's. I nodded and trudged down the hall to my room. I plopped on the bed and instantly fell asleep. Daniel woke me up around 7. He said the head alpha wanted to have the meeting. I got out of bed and put on dark-colored jeans and a black shirt. I walked downstairs to the dining table. Daniel was sitting at the table with a bald man and my mate. My mate was eating breakfast. I am sorry for keeping you waiting. I apologized to the alpha. He nodded. Let's get started, shall we? I sat at the table. I looked at my mate, expecting her to leave. But she didn't even look up at me. She was extremely focused on her cereal. Daniel cleared his throat. Alpha Elliot, you said that you have news from the council? He asked. The alpha nodded. Due to recent events, the council thought it was an embryo. I wasn't listening to either of them. My mate was sitting across from me. Without meaning to, she was distracting me from an important meeting. I'm sorry, I interrupted the head alpha and turned to my mate. This is a meeting. You have no business here. Daniel stared at me wide-eyed. My mate looked up at me and gave me a look filled with disgust and hatred. Alpha Elliot growled. That is my niece you are talking to, he warned. She could be here. I'm making my second impression very bad. I swore under my breath. I'm Alpha Jonathan White. I introduced myself. My mate ignored me, but I knew I deserved it. I sighed and continued with the meeting. My apologies. Please continue, I said in a professional manner. The council thought that it was in everyone's best interest that we create a rule involving mates and alphas, he started. After recent events involving the Forest Wanderer and Hollow Moon Pack, the council passed a new law. Only an alpha and his true mate can lead a pack. But Gabriella has already been chosen for Luna. What if it was decided before the law was passed? I asked. Do you have a Luna? Elliot asked. I shook my head. Then you must cancel the ceremony. What if I never find my mate? I inquired. I could just convince people that I never seen my mate. Then I won't have to have her as a Luna. Gabriella could be Luna. There would be no ruling problems. Everyone would be happy. Elliot sighed and gave me an apologetic look. Then you cannot lead the pack. I glanced at my mate, whose name I still don't know. I felt disgusted with myself. I was making up excuses not to be with her. I was convincing myself of all this shit for nothing. I didn't want to hurt Gabriella, but I hurt my mate, someone who I should be protecting. Is that all? Daniel asked. Elliot nodded and told us that he would leave soon. I have to check up on my mate. Have a nice trip, Daniel said while shaking hands with the alpha. He turned to my mate and kissed her cheek. I fought back a growl. It was a pleasure meeting you, Annabelle. Annabelle? Beautiful name. Elliot walked out with Daniel, leaving my mate and I alone. Annabelle, I started. I Apollo. Don't, she shouted. We're lucky that Daniel and Elliot left, or else they could hear us. You just want me, so you can keep your precious title, she hissed at me. That's not true, I argued. She waited for me to continue, but I didn't know what to say. I just didn't want to complicate things. Has alpha blood. We would just clash all the time, and we will end up destroying each other. I couldn't explain my mindset because I barely even understood it. Unbelievable, she mumbled. I opened my mouth to argue, but an unfamiliar male voice filled the house. Babe, I'm back. A male, about our age, came into the kitchen. He wasn't from my pack. He looked from me to Annabelle. Babe? Anna? He asked. Babe? He just called my mate Babe. My mate smiled at him. Hi, Thomas, she greeted him. They stared at each other, probably talking through the mind link. I narrowed my eyes at the guy. I could probably take him. I'm taller and most likely stronger, but he's a beta. Him? Thomas growled and pointed at me. Without hesitation, he walked up to me and punched me in the face. Chapter 7. Annabelle's POV, after the rejection. Anna? Thomas's concerned voice filled my ears. I couldn't hold it together. I let out a sob. and Thomas wrapped his arms around me. "Shh, what's wrong, Anna?" Thomas whispered in my ear. I shook my head, signaling that I didn't want to talk about it. "Want to go outside?" he asked softly. I nodded and smiled. Being outside always made me feel better. I followed Thomas out the back door, and we walked through the forest. I silently cried while Thomas walked beside me. We were walking for almost an hour when a sharp pain hit my chest. I fell to the ground and my breathing became ragged. Thomas knelt down next to me, but I couldn't hear anything. I saw his lips moving, but I couldn't hear his voice. The pain hurt worse than Jonathan rejecting me. I shut my eyes, hoping that it would stop. But instead, I had a vision. It was like looking through another person's eyes. There was a redhead. I'd never seen her before. And I opened my eyes, and another wave of pain hit me. Jonathan. This wave was quicker, but more painful. I took deep breaths and steadied my breathing. "Can you hear me?" Thomas asked. I nodded and continued to slow my beating heart. "What the hell was that?" I asked Thomas. He frowned. "I've only seen it once." He trailed off. "When?" I pushed the subject. "Do you remember Naomi?" he asked. Naomi was the pack slut of the royal pack. She wasn't really bad, but she got around a lot. Her mate rejected her, then she moved. No one has seen or heard from her since. I nodded. I saw the same thing happen to her. After her mate rejected her, he slept with another girl, and that's what happened, he explained. I sat down against a tree. "You found your mate," Thomas stated. I nodded, even though it wasn't a question. "And he?" Thomas trailed off. I nodded. "He rejected me." I choked out as tears began to blur my vision. "I'm so sorry, Anna," Thomas said as he hugged me tightly. I clung to him like my life depended on it. Which it probably does. "What if I die?" I asked after a while. "Wolves can't live without their mates. You won't die," Thomas reassured me. "You're strong enough to get back from this. That guy is an ass. He didn't deserve you to begin with." I smiled at Thomas. "Thanks." He gave me a small smile, and we headed back to the pack house. We split up and went into our own guest rooms. I laid in my bed and thought about today. Meeting Jonathan. The pain. Everything. I decided that I wouldn't let him affect me. I don't need him. I don't want him if he's really what I saw today. This was just a waste of the moon goddess's time. I woke up at 6. I got dressed and went downstairs. Daniel was sitting at the table with Thomas. "Morning," I greeted them. "How'd you sleep?" Thomas asked. I shrugged. "Orange Fanta and hot Cheetos?" he asked. I nodded my head and he left to go to the store. "You hungry?" Daniel asked while getting out 2 bowls. I smiled at him. "Are you gonna make me breakfast?" I questioned. Daniel nodded. "Of course. You're my guest." I laughed and sat at the table. A few minutes later, Daniel put a bowl of cereal in front of me. "I would cook, but I think you want to live." I laughed and thanked him. We ate our cereal in silence when Elliot walked in. "Morning sunshine," I teased. Elliot glared at me and poured himself a cup of coffee. "We're leaving at noon," Elliot informed me. I nodded. "The sooner we leave, the sooner I get away from Jonathan." "Is the Alpha in?" Elliot asked Daniel. "I'll go get him," Daniel said as he disappeared from the room. I continued to eat, even after Daniel returned. I heard footsteps, and the scent of citrus and grass filled my nose. "Jonathan." "I'm sorry for keeping you waiting," Jonathan said. I focused on my cereal. "Let's get started, shall we?" I could feel his gaze on me, but I never looked up. Daniel said something, and Elliot started to talk about the council. But Jonathan stopped Elliot mid-sentence. "I'm sorry." He apologized to Elliot. "This is a meeting. You have no business here," Jonathan hissed at me, making my head snap up to him. "Asshole." Daniel gaped at his alpha, while Elliot let out a vicious growl. "That is my niece you are talking to," he said in a low voice. His eyes started to turn a darker shade. "She can be here." Jonathan introduced himself to me, but I ignored him. They continued with the meeting, and I toned them out. Elliot and Daniel both got up and walked away, leaving me with my ex-mate. "Annabelle," Jonathan started. "Oh, now he wants to speak. Is he serious right now?" Apollo? "Oh, hell no. Don't give me that crap," I shouted. "You just want me, so you can keep your precious title," I snapped. "That's not true. He lied." I waited for him to explain. He didn't even try to come up with an excuse. "Unbelievable," I mumbled. Babe, I'm back, Thomas shouted from the front door. Perfect timing. I glared at Jonathan. Babe? Anna? Thomas asked concerned as he set the back of chips and soda on the table. He looked back and forth from Jonathan and I. I moved my gaze away from my ex-mate and softly smiled at my best friend. Hi, Thomas, I said. It's him, isn't it? Thomas asked through the mind link. His hands were wrapped tightly in fists, and his jaw was clenched. He's the alpha, so don't do anything stupid, I warned him. Thomas growled and pointed at Jonathan. Him? He asked. I reluctantly nodded my head in confirmation. Thomas marched up to the alpha and punched him straight in the face. Chapter 8. Annabelle's POV. Thomas's fist hit Jonathan's face, causing his head to snap back. I gasped and put my hand over my mouth. My eyes were wide and staring at the scene in front of me. Thomas smirked triumphantly, and Jonathan was beyond angry. Thomas walked closer to me and put his arm around me, making Jonathan even more mad. He let out a growl and his eyes turned pitch black. Bad doggy, I scolded him. What did you just say? Jonathan asked through gritted teeth. I pulled away from Thomas and took a bold step towards my mate. I said bad doggy. I stood straight, challenging him. Jonah glared at me. I like that nickname. Jonah, you better watch your mouth. Your uncle isn't here to protect you, he sneered. I punched him hard in the stomach. It was so hard that my fist felt like I just punched fire. He grunted and bent over. Does it look like I need his protection? I whispered in his ear. He shot up and his eyes flashed golden. You are hanging from a thread, little mate, Jonathan warned, as his wolf fought for control. His eyes kept shifting from bright gold to the normal blue-gray color. Ignoring the fact that he called me little, I crossed my arms over my chest. Does it look like I care? I retorted. You're playing with fire, he informed me. What? Are you gonna hurt me? I asked. I tilted my head up and looked him straight in the eyes. There is nothing that you can do that would hurt. Nothing would compare to what you did yesterday. I failed at hiding the hurt in my voice. The alpha's niece can't take a little rejection? He asked in a teasing voice. I gritted my teeth together. You know that's not it, I stated. He just stared at me. You don't know, do you? Thomas spoke up. Jonathan took a step away from me and shook his head. She almost died, Thomas stated bluntly. What? How? Jonathan asked, almost sounding concerned. You can't reject me, sleep with someone else, shout at me, then act like you actually give a shit. I narrowed my eyes at the alpha. You, Thomas growled. Jonathan tilted his head in confusion. It's your fault. You almost killed her, he spat. Jonathan turned his gaze to me. What's he talking about? She inquired. I felt it, I started. You and the redhead. I saw it and I felt it. I felt the pain. I fought back tears as I watched his reaction. You felt it? He asked. I nodded. That's not my fault, he stated. How isn't that your fault? Thomas shouted at him. Jonathan glared at him and looked at me. You could have accepted it, he said, referring to the rejection. You wouldn't feel it if you just accepted it. So this is my fault? I asked, exasperated. Jonathan nodded. Pretty much. You fuck? Anna. Elliot cut me off. I turned around and watched as he rushed up to me. The castle. It's under attack. That turned the fight into a meager situation. My heart dropped and my mind cleared. The only things on my mind were my family, friends, and pack. People could be dying. I didn't need any details. I ran outside and shifted into my royal white wolf. I ran faster than I ever did before. Driving back would be at least a few hours. I ran so fast, we got to the castle half an hour later. The smell of werewolves hit me. But they weren't from the royal pack. They weren't rogues either. I shifted back into my human form, quickly slipped on a long shirt, and walked toward the gates. There were bodies everywhere, some in wolf form, some in human form. Some dead, some barely breathing. I got to the gates and Johnny, Elliot's beta, walked out of the castle. He was covered in blood, but none of it was his. A crying Alyssa trailed behind him. I walked closer to the castle, but they both shook their heads at me. No, I said, barely over a whisper. Where's Ford? I asked to no one specific. I looked around as if I would find his body on the floor. Johnny approached me cautiously. I got him and Alyssa to the safe house before anything happened. He's with Spike's mate, Johnny answered. My parents? I asked, afraid of the answer. Alyssa let out a loud sob and Elliot wrapped his arms around her. No, 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 no. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. Anna. Thomas lightly placed his hand on my shoulder. I kept shaking my head. Thomas pulled me into his embrace, but I shoved him away. I walked to the doors of the castle. I reached for the handle, but Elliot grabbed my wrist. Don't, Anna, he pleaded. I shook my wrist out of his grasp and pulled open the door. I screamed my lungs out and fell to my knees. Elliot lifted me to my feet, but I screamed when he reached out for me. I did that to anyone who came closer than an arm's length. Elliot gave up and left with Alyssa. Johnny went to take care of a few things. Thomas stayed in the castle with me, but he kept his distance. I bawled my eyes out for over an hour, never moving, just crying. I talked to them the day before yesterday. It was supposed to be every day, but I wasn't in the best mood yesterday. I racked my brain trying to remember the last thing they said to me. I remembered all the memories of them, and I realized that we wouldn't be able to make any more of those memories. I need to make a call, Thomas announced as he stood up and walked out the front door. I kept blinking, hoping that the scene in front of me would change, begging the moon goddess to let this be an awful dream, but it didn't help. I shouted at the top of my lungs until I couldn't breathe, and I passed out on the floor. Chapter 9. Jonathan's POV. So, this is my fault? Annabelle asked, exasperated. I nodded. Pretty much. She could have saved herself from the hurt if she just accepted my rejection and moved on. Obviously, she moved on, but she didn't accept my rejection. Her fists clenched at her sides. You fuck, Anna, a voice shouted, cutting off whatever insult she was about to throw at me. Elliot rushed into the kitchen. The castle. It's under attack. Elliot barely finished his sentence when Annabelle took off running. I followed them into my backyard where they all shifted. Elliot's wolf was a large black alpha wolf. Thomas's wolf was a light brown color. And Annabelle, her wolf was pure white. Then it hit me. She doesn't have alpha blood. She has royal blood. My mate is a royal. Daniels, I called through the mind link. That is my name. Did you know? I questioned the smartass. Know what? That Annabelle is a royals. What? Daniel exclaimed. I told him everything, starting with yesterday and ending with seeing her shift. You idiot, Daniel shouted at me. She could probably kill me and just leave my pack to be rogues. I can't believe that I rejected a royal. God, I'm so stupid. I was chosen to have a royal mate, but I ruined it. The moon goddess is probably frowning down at me as I speak. I wouldn't have rejected her if I knew she was a royals, I argued. The royal family would have every reason to destroy me. I'm not talking about that, Daniel snapped. Then what? I asked. You are so stupid. Alpha Elliot said that the castle is under attack, Daniel told me. So, your mate is a royal. And where does the royal family live? Daniel asked, like he was talking to a child. They live in the castles, I stated. Then I put it all together. Her family is under attack, I shouted. What do I do? I asked Daniel for advice. Sorry, man, but you can't do anything. You rejected her. You don't have a say in what happens now. I can't just sit here and do no. I was cut off when I started gasping for air. It felt like I literally got the air knocked out of me. Jonah? Daniel asked. I blocked him out and steadied my breathing. For some reason, I felt like crying. It was weird. I shut my eyes and saw blood. A lot of it. Blood and dead wolves. I snapped my eyes open when my phone started ringing. I pulled it out of my front pocket and looked at the number. It was out of state. I answered it. Hello? Alpha Jonathan? Thomas's voice said through the phone. What do you want? I hissed. He better not be calling to tell me I'm an asshole or something. It's Annabelle. I think she need. There was a piercing scream that lasted almost a whole minute. I heard a thud, like he dropped his phone. I strained my ears to hear what was going on. People were calling my mate's name. There were a lot of footsteps, and a child was crying. I heard shuffling, and Thomas's breathing filled my ears. What happened to her? I asked frantically. You need to get over here, Thomas demanded. I held the phone to my ear with my shoulder as I started walking closer to the forest. What happened? I repeated. She's weak. She needs her mate, Thomas said just before he ended the call. Daniel. What happened? Daniel asked. I need to help Annabelle. You're in charge of the packs, I told him. I didn't wait for a response, and I blocked him out. I walked into the forest and shifted into my black wolf. I ran to the castle. I have no idea what was going on, but I had a feeling that it wasn't good. I got to the royal pack lines, and about 20 wolves came out, some in wolf form, others human. They all got in a fighting stance. One man stepped forward. He had familiar features, but I couldn't quite pinpoint who he looked like. Who are you? Alpha Jonathan White of the Sunset Guardian Pack. Dad, let him in, Thomas's voice said. He walked out from behind the other men and motioned for me to follow him. I trailed behind him while the warriors watched me warily. Thomas, why is he here? Thomas's father asked. He's Annabelle's mate. Whether we like it or not, she needs him to survive, he replied stiffly. How would he help? A warrior asked. Thomas sighed. Just by being near each other, mates give each other strength, whether it be emotional or physical. Annabelle needs both. Everyone was quiet as we walked to the castle. What the hell is going on? Thomas led me in the castle, and we walked through hallways until we stopped in front of a plain door. I could feel my mate's presence. Her scent was strong. I listened through the door. Her heartbeat was weak. Thomas opened the door, and we walked inside. Annabelle was lying on the hospital bed with machines and wires attached to her. What happened? I asked Thomas as I took one of Annabelle's hands in mine. She was cold. I rubbed my thumbs on her hand, hoping to give her warmth. She's in a coma, Thomas stated. I frowned as I got an achy feeling in my chest. How long until she heals? I asked. The doctor said that she may never heal, he said sadly. What? I exclaimed. Sit down, Thomas demanded. I sat in the chair by the bed. I'll tell you what happened, but no interruptions. I nodded in agreement. She was weak after you rejected her. She got even weaker when you slept with that red-headed slew. Gabriella. Her name is Gabriella. Thomas glared at me for interrupting. Thomas continued his story. You damaged her wolf. She wasn't responding at all. The doctor believes that her wolf is close to death, and without her wolf, Annabelle would be unable to survive. It only got worse. He sighed and rubbed his face. The castle was attacked. The king and queen didn't survive. We killed all the attackers, except those who were inside with the king and queen. We decided that the princess will choose what to do with them. I don't understand what any of this has to do with Annabelle, I stated. I wasn't finished, he stated. We ran all the way over here. The fight was over, but Annabelle saw the king's and queen's dead bodies, so she fainted at the sight of it, I concluded. Thomas shook his head. She fainted because she was hurt. I looked at my mate, checking for scratches or blood. Not physically, Thomas assured me. The king and queen were her parents, and she saw what happened to them. She had to heal mentally. Unfortunately, her body thought it would be best to slip into a coma. She saw her parents' dead bodies? I asked. Thomas frowned and nodded. So where do I come in? I asked. She will need you near her. You can help her heal, and you, Wolf, might be able to contact hers, Thomas explained. Can you do it? I asked Max. I'll try for our mate, Max responded stiffly. He's obviously still mad at me. I have to go, Thomas said as he walked out the room. Thank the moon goddess, he left. I don't want to be in the same room as my mate's boyfriend. That's just awkward. I heard the door close, and I scooted my chair closer to my mate. I took her hand in mine and rubbed my thumbs on the back. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. You wouldn't be here, like this, if I didn't reject you, I whispered to her still form. Guilt, sadness, and worry filled my whole body. I don't know if you can hear me or not. People say that when you're in a coma, you can still hear things. I am so sorry. I take it back. I take it all back. I gently kissed her hand. I take back the rejection. I take back saying it was your fault. It's not. It's my fault. I was an idiot for hurting you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I promise I'll be a better mate. I'll do whatever you want. Just please wake up. I begged on the verge of breaking down. She didn't show any reaction as I spoke. I felt guilty, angry, and worried. It's my fault that she was weak when she got here. I was so pissed at myself for doing this to her, and I was worried that she would never wake up from this. I looked at her face and pushed her hair away from her eyes. Please. Chapter 10. Jonathan's POV. I heard a soft knock on the door. A pregnant, and I mean very pregnant woman walked in with a child in her arms. I let go of my mate and walked up to the woman. Hi, I'm Alyssa, Elliot's mate. She introduced herself. I'm Alpha Jonathan of the Sunset Guardian Pack. I'm also Annabelle's mate. At the mention of Annabelle, the kid took his head off of Alyssa's shoulder. He studied me for a moment. His blue eyes watched me. You're Anna's mate? He asked. I smiled at the kid and nodded. Are you gonna help her? Sniffled. Alyssa was struggling with the kid, so I grabbed him from her. She thanked me and walked towards Annabelle. She kissed her forehead and whispered lowly, so I couldn't listen. Not that I would. I feel like I should leave if someone wants to talk to Annabelle. I carried the kid to the chair and sat him on my lap. Auntie Alyssa said that my sister is sick. He rubbed his eyes as he cried. She's gonna be okay, right? He looked up at me, his eyes piercing through mine. I gently wiped his tears with my thumbs. I don't know, kid, I told him honestly. Tears began to gather in my own eyes. I'll do whatever I can to help her, I declared. Promise, he asked. I quickly nodded. Come on, Ford. I think you need to rest, Alyssa said. When are Mommy and Daddy coming home? The kid, Ford, asked while getting off my lap. Alyssa turned away from us, and I faintly heard her sob. He obviously doesn't know. Ford. The kid turned around to look at me. How about you let your auntie say goodnight to Annabelle? You can show me your room, and I'll tuck you in, I offered. I don't want to leave Annabelle, but it won't take long. Okay. Can I say goodnight to Anna first? He asked. I nodded, and he walked towards his sister. He tried whispering so I couldn't hear. Tried being the key word. Your mate is gonna tuck me in. I like him, he said. I smiled. Good night, Anna. Feel better? He kissed his sister's cheek and walked to me. Ready? I asked. Ford nodded and grabbed my hand. As we walked out, I turned to Alyssa, who mouthed, thank you. I nodded and